Is your small business growing? That's the question we address right here on the Grow Your Biz Show. It's where we interview strategic entrepreneurs who inform and inspire you on your solopreneur or small company journey. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Grow Your Biz Show.
Hello, and welcome to the Grow Your Biz Show. This is episode number 68, and I am Paul Madsen, your host of the program. Today, I'm thrilled to have in the studio with me Amy Mayer of Mayer Wellness and Myofascial Release, LLC. I got through that name here, Amy. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Nice to have you. Nice to have I met Amy at a networking event, and she impressed me as a true solopreneur, and I said, let's get together and have you on the program. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Amy, I'm just going to jump right in. Tell us, what business are you in?
Well, if you look at my website, my tagline there is break the cycle, redesign life. So I'm all about helping people break the pain cycle with non-medication options and then helping them rebuild their habits of life to prevent that pain from returning.
Well, I'm sure that's an important calling. There are a lot of people with pain, both steady pain and recurring occasional pain out there, and
Yes.
you help that go away.
I do.
How do you do that?
I specialize in a technique called myofascial release, specifically the John Barnes method.
Okay.
And that is a hands-on soft tissue mobilization technique that addresses primarily the fascial system, which is something a lot of people haven't heard about.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit. Remind me to get back and
Sure.
learn more about human anatomy. That'd be great. Amy, tell us, why are you in this business? Why did you start your wellness practice?
I was very fortunate as a new graduate to learn this technique. And when my fellow therapist taught me how to use it, I was just amazed at how well I could help people just from her teaching me. So I have continued to go to classes over the last 3 decades or so, and I love the outcomes I get. It's just a wonderful technique that really can make a difference in people's lives.
Well, awesome. So you've treated and helped hundreds of people, or maybe thousands over that long period of time.
Very likely, yes.
Yeah, and you enjoy the outcomes of seeing the relief that you bring to them.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Amy, I think about this. In Omaha, Nebraska, there are dozens of options as far as people who want to get relief of some sort. There's chiropractic, there's acupuncture, there's physical therapists, occupational therapists like you, pain clinics, and so on and so forth, MDs. What helps Mayer Wellness to stand apart from these? What differentiates you from all the noise out there?
Sure. A lot of that is the understanding of the fascial system and the use of the Barnes technique. It's something that not a lot of people know about and understand. So, and people are starting to finally hear more about this system in our bodies, and they're actually seeking this technique out, or someone that can understand this and help them with that from that perspective. I also, with my experience as an occupational therapist and my background in ergonomics, I not only help people get rid of that pain using that technique, but I'm really passionate about posture and body mechanics and helping people understand how to change their bodies and change their lives so they don't go back to the same habits that might have contributed to that pain in the first place.
Well, that answer made me sit up straight.
Yes, I'm watching.
Yeah, you are. Well, you've watched a lot of people. And how long have you been doing this practice?
I've been in practice for almost 3 decades.
Okay.
And my career has taken a lot of twists and turns, but I've always used this technique as well as the ergonomics and body mechanics to help people really get rid of their pain.
And how long have you done your own practice?
I have been officially in full-time practice for 7 months, but I've had a side practice for many, many, many years aside from my other full-time jobs I've had.
So viewers, take note as you consider launching your own business or growing your business. Take a page out of Amy's playbook and know that a side hustle sometimes works out. How long did you have a side hustle for? How many years?
Oh, it's been about 2 decades
Yeah.
before I finally jumped in full time.
Sure, and you learned a lot along the way, I'm sure.
I did.
Well, tell us a little bit more about myofascial release. You've got some props here that you use in your daily business. Tell us what it is and how you use things to help people out and what some of their outcomes might be and so on.
Sure. Can I talk just a little bit about the fascial system itself
Please.
first? That'll help you understand the
Yeah.
technique a little bit better. The fascial system is a connective tissue system that runs throughout your entire body like a big web.
Okay.
And its primary functions when it's healthy are to keep everything inside you in place,
Okay.
but also help your body move and things inside your body glide across each other.
Okay.
And another big function that it has is to protect you.
Okay.
So it's normally this very hydrated, loosely woven web, but when you're injured with a fall or a car accident or a cut into your body, that web will tighten up and thicken up to support you.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
the web doesn't, if all things were normal, that web would go back to its normal hydrated, loose self if everything were normal. But it doesn't always do that because we have poor posture. We sit a lot in our culture. So it needs a little bit of extra help easing back into its normal manner.
Okay.
And that's where the myofascial release comes in. And the technique that I use is a very gentle technique. It's a hands-on technique. The fascial system can't be forced. When it's thick, it's designed to protect you.
Right.
So it's very, very strong.
Armor. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So the technique that I use is there's pushes and pulls into your system where it's designed to match the tension in your body.
Okay.
Until I feel
Mask it?
Match it.
Match it,
I would
okay.
match the tension that you have in your body.
Okay.
And then I push and hold that for quite a long period of time, several minutes sometimes,
Interesting.
easing the system into relaxation.
Huh.
So, and that's when that web will loosen back up and take the pressure off of your body, allow blood to flow, and it's really the blood flow that helps heal.
Healing, yeah, okay.
So the props that I have are really things that I teach my clients. After I work on them, then I teach them self-care techniques and how they can do some of the stretches themselves and really.
So it's not where you have people coming back to you for months at a time. You try to teach them to
I'm
be
all about
self-educated and
self-care.
self-treating and so on.
I want to empower people to be able to take control and manage things themselves. So we use different props and tools and the balls to teach them how to press into their own system to get that release. It's a very different kind of
What would
stretching.
you do with the ball, for instance?
Typically, I teach some classes and workshops using these as well. So we might get down on the mat, use the balls to press into the back, the hips, the shoulders, sometimes into the abdomen as well. And we use the blocks and the straps to learn how to move your body, to press in at the angle that your body specifically needs.
Something about against a wall sometimes or something like that?
Sometimes if you have difficulty getting down on the floor, then I'll teach you how to do it against the wall until your body's ready to get up and down from the floor.
Well, I can get down on the floor real easy. It's the getting up part that
I can help you get back if you
got a crane? Well, that's interesting. And tell us the nature of your practice. I mean, you have a facility, a little gym, if you will, and tell us about that.
I have a clinic area, an office on 4060 Vinton.
Yeah, gym's not the right word.
4060 Vinton Street.
Okay.
And we have private treatment rooms, and then we have an open classroom as well where we do a lot of the classes and the workshops.
Sure. And how long have you had that facility?
We've been in that facility since May of
really? Wow.
2018.
Okay, wow.
And it's
Last
beautiful.
year.
Yep.
And the kind. Tell us about a class that might come in. For instance, you said you have classes that come in.
I have monthly workshops where we do teaching you how to do the self releases, and that's about once a month on a Saturday morning.
Okay.
And then I have twice a month I have other classes related to the same thing where we actually do them together rather than the workshop. You're learning how to do it yourself so you can go home and do it.
Okay.
And then I have a weekly yoga class as well.
Yeah, tell us about, I mean, is yoga mixed into, these are all weekly yoga classes, you said?
Yeah.
That's a different offering.
That is a different offering, but I incorporate a lot of the fascial techniques in that, the prolonged stretches. Yoga is wonderful because you learn to move your body in all sorts of different directions. You add a little strength, a little meditation. It's good for all the systems in your body.
Sure. My daughter's deep into it, and I think it helps her a lot.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Is it unusual for a doctor of occupational therapy, such as you, to be a yoga practitioner as well? Tell us about that.
I would say I'm a pretty unique occupational therapist,
Yeah.
and that I've delved more into the alternative approaches to healing and getting people back into being as functional as possible and leading a meaningful life. But there are other occupational therapists out there that are also yoga practitioners.
Sure. I forgot to ask you earlier when we were talking about differentiators, something you just said reminded me. Tell us about your insurance situation or your non-insurance situation and how that makes you, in my opinion, better.
In my practice, I don't process insurance, and for some people that's a positive, and for some that's a negative.
I understand.
And part of the reason that I don't process insurance is, one, it makes it a very complicated process for myself
and slow
as a business owner, and slow,
Yeah,
but it's also very complicated for the client or the patient as well. And also a lot of the people that I work with are very functional. They can go to work, they can take care of their families, they can sleep, they can play, they can get everything done. They just hurt when they do it. So the quality of life is low. And a lot of times with insurance, you have to prove that there is some sort of a functional problem.
Well, I've been through that. The reason your practice sounded appealing to me is I had a family member who was on prolonged physical therapy, and something I read on your website that they spent a fair amount of time every once in a while with assessment. And that wasn't a treatment. It was like, okay, what can you do? And then what can you do another time? And they kept assessing it. For what? For insurance, right?
For insurance purposes.
And so there's all that bureaucracy, if you will, and to do that and to make that happen. And it seemed like everything's set up for whether insurance will continue to pay.
Yes, and I personally, I do assessment, and sometimes that's very important to understand where you're at. But I want every minute of my time, effort, problem solving, energy to go into helping my clients and not to pleasing an insurance company.
Well, and that's beautiful because I like what you say about how you can make it so it's focused on them. Like you just said, every minute on them, not worried about an assessment or a paperwork form, just treating them as a patient as they need to be treated. Does that help your patients? What's their reaction to that?
Most clients don't have a problem. It's very clear on my website where I stand with that. So by the time they come to me, they know what the expectation is, and they're there because they want to get better. Right,
and your rates are outlined there, and so they know what to expect on the front end. You bet.
Yes.
Well, backing up a little bit, tell us how you got started as in the whole occupational therapy business, and then also your transition into becoming a solo practitioner.
Well, that could be a long story.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But I fell in love with occupational therapy because the key of what occupational therapists do is help people return to or find a meaningful life. And usually after some sort of disability. And originally my career started in working with people with strokes, brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, deep into the physical disabilities aspect of that.
Right.
And then I really found out how the myofascial work really marries that well, and it really works well together.
Okay.
My second job, I worked for a private practice and started a whole occupational therapy department for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's where I got the private practice bug.
Yeah. And how many years into the career were you at that
I
point?
was only 2 years into my career.
So early
at
on,
that.
you were
Yes.
young and moldable.
So it was after then that I kind of started my side practice.
Okay.
Once I left there and moved to Omaha, actually, from Northeast Iowa.
Okay.
And I knew that once my kids grew up and were on their own, this is where I'd be.
Well, that's awesome. And so I mean, how scary was it to go in one day and say, I quit, I'm out of here, I started my own little private practice, it might feed me, it might not, but see y'all later. Tell us about that moment.
I am a very risk-averse person, a low-risk person, and so knowing that this was something that I really wanted to step out there and do someday, I've spent many years preparing.
Okay.
And trying to really save money, so I had some backup funds in case things moved along slower than I thought they would.
Yeah, I think people always
Yes.
do that, not always, but often do that. People say, I'm going to put out my own shingle, I'm going to start my own thing, and they anticipate that the revenues are coming much sooner than they often do.
Yeah.
I see that time and time and again. So I like your plan A to, number one, do it on the side, and be prepared, because I've heard very successful business people say that same thing, that you know what your expenses are on the front end for the most part, but you don't always know what your revenue is going to be.
Exactly.
I mean, how scary was that? Tell us about some of that learning experience for you.
When I really was getting more serious and I knew that if I didn't do it now, I'd probably never do it, I got very serious on my side practice and put as much time and effort as I could into that while still fulfilling my...
You had a 40-hour-a-week job.
I was a faculty member at Creighton University for 18 years.
Wow.
And I still had a strong ethical responsibility to fulfill every job duty I had there, but so be prepared to have less sleep if you're going to get serious about a side practice. But once I spent a year or so doing that and saw the referrals and the word of mouth going, then that gave me a lot of confidence that that was going to continue after I finally
Well, how many
said
hours?
goodbye.
I mean, it's impossible to go back and look at that, but I mean, in general, you did your 40-plus hours for Creighton, and how many hours on the side a week would you throw into it on average?
Oh,
I know
gosh.
it's a floating number.
If you go beyond the client care and into all the business development aspects, I mean, it's 10, 20, even more hours a week sometimes.
So, like you say, I guess it summarizes it when you say you get by at a lot less sleep.
I was lucky to have a big PTO bank too from being there for many years, so I could use PTO for some days there as well.
Good to have some time off to help you with the buffer of that whole process. Well, you've talked about how you prepared quite well and planned ahead quite well for this and did the side hustle. What speed bumps or surprises have you had along the way since launching full-time, or even what things you learned part-time along the way?
I think one of the things that probably getting and staying organized and having a plan for all your filing system and saving receipts, and if you're not a person that is sort of a default detail-oriented person, you've got to have a plan. Probably the other one was finding an attorney and an accountant that you really mesh with, and I was very fortunate. My attorney and I meshed right away, and was a good referral from a friend. I'm on my second accountant. So
that happens.
Finding someone that I think really cares about your business as much as you do, and that you really feel like you can ask them questions and they get back to you, and they feel like they're invested in it. And I think that is so important.
Well, those are two really important pieces of advice, because I mean, the attorney and the accountant can really help you make or break a business.
That expertise is so important.
Well, and most of us have expertise in our own areas. Mine is more of a marketing and coaching type of thing. Yours is obviously the clinical side. And I mean, how did you learn about all that invoice stuff and landlord leases? And tell us about that journey.
I did a lot of self-education, and when I was
website
faculty,
development, and marketing, sales.
When I worked at Creighton, I taught the management class for the OTs, and I have a background in management in my career as well, so I had some of that. But the Small Business Association website and resources were huge for me.
Right, yeah. The
Very
SBA
helpful.
has good resources. Yeah.
Yes. And so self-education through there, through other resources, a lot of self-teaching, but a lot of asking other people that I know are in similar types of businesses.
Okay.
And I when I was at Creighton too, I was involved in a lot of distance teaching, so I was
Okay.
familiar with how to make videos and how to do teaching. So that's some things that I just naturally pulled into my practice with me.
Well, that's cool. I mean, entrepreneurs are kind of nicknamed as lone wolves, or that person all by themselves out there. And you're an example, I think, a shining example of we're not in it alone. We don't do it alone. You use mentors. You sought out the right help. Oh, I was going to ask, your attorney and your accountant, are they focused on the solopreneur type of focus? I mean, is that what you said you meshed with them? I mean, how important was that, or how focused are they on for someone to find an attorney or accountant that is oriented to small business? That's how easy is that?
Yeah, asking other people that are in similar type
you said that.
businesses, but also check them out. Get online and see what their website is like and what they really
reviews.
There are reviews out. Yeah, some
Right.
do. But my attorney specializes in startups.
Oh,
so,
perfect. Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah, so he was another good piece of advice I think for people too is I asked him, can I just sit down and talk to you first and see if we're a good match?
They should be open to that.
They're open to that.
Oh, that's important.
I did the same thing with both my accountants too, to talk to them a little bit and just without a charge associated with it.
Well, that's good advice. Yeah.
Right, they're often entrepreneurs themselves.
Well, of course they are. Yes, they're private practice people. Tell us about marketing. You've taught yourself a lot of self-marketing, and what have you done that's worked?
I built my own website.
Yes, and it's a good one.
Mayorwellness.com.
Mayorwellness.com.
And that has been a huge way to get people to find me. Because people are, like I said, starting to learn about fascia and myofascial release, and it's coming in through a lot of the sports and even in the beauty, but not quite in the healthcare area yet.
Yeah.
So they're Googling that word, and so learning how to build a website that integrates that so that people will find you.
Well, what I like about your website, and I spent some time with it, is the exhaustiveness, is that a word? Exhaustiveness? Comprehensiveness
There you go.
Of that thing. I mean, you've got articles and advice and more advice and topics that are of appeal to people. And I am not a web guru or anything like that, but I understand that having all those words and those key words in there helps you with the search part. So was that helpful too? I mean, do you get leads off that on a regular basis?
I do.
And I know something about you, and I know that once somebody comes, they are giving you a lot of good word of mouth, right?
Word of mouth is my number one way that people come to me, yes.
What's a typical type of visit? I mean, as far as patient comes to you, do they visit you 10 times, 5 times, 1 time? What's the mix?
It can be very different because I see there's a lot of people that are local, but I do attract people from quite a distance as well.
Okay.
So because there's not a lot of me out there who practice in the way that I do and use the Barnes technique. So sometimes it's a one-shot visit, and we try to get in as much as we can in one visit and teaching them a lot of self-care.
Sure.
But I would say a lot of my clients will come once a week for several weeks to sort of really get into their issue and start working on that. And then I have some people that just come back every other week, once a month, just for wellness purposes too.
Okay. Well, and I get that from you. Some practitioners see how often they can have the patient come back to them, but you are into self-care and self-teaching to kind of get rid of them.
Teach them what to do in between times, and then teach them, kind of wean them off. And,
right.
And I think body work is good for everybody,
right.
even if you don't have pain.
Sure.
But not everybody can afford it, or
right.
Wants to take their time up to go do that as well. So.
As we wrap up here, tell us about, I call it a glory story just because they rhymed, a success story of some of your patients. Jane or Joe came to you with XYZ and you did this, and they left
Actually, there's a lot. So picking one.
You get 30 seconds.
Okay, so probably one of the most satisfying recent ones was a woman who has a very high-stress job working, entering data. So she's on a computer all day long.
Right.
And she'd been getting regular massages from somebody else for quite a long time.
Okay.
And so they finally convinced her to come to me, and we really looked at, well, how is she doing her ergonomics at her job? And figured out that it was the activity that she was doing with the mouse work and the clicking that was really addressing the muscle that was really causing her pain, and so the area of her body, which was her neck. And so once we were able to change how she did her work and loosen some of those tissues, what was bothering her for nearly a decade is now gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now she's gone as a patient.
Oh, she still comes back
Comes
because
back,
she just
stretching
thinks
and
it
things.
feels good. It feels good to her.
That's great.
So.
And I hope she's a testimony on your website. I don't know, maybe,
Yeah.
or you will be. You will be soon. Amy, how do people reach you?
You can look for all my contact information on my website, marewellness.com, or my email address is marewellness@gmail.com.
Okay, we'll have those posted on the credits, of course.
All right.
And Amy, it's been inspirational. I feel like I need to come see you and be healthier as we go along. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it, and it's a great visit to have with you. As we wrap up, I would like to throw out that coming up on January 26th is my workshop through Metropolitan Community College. It's a non-credit program. The program is called Self-Promotion for the Self-Employed, and it's on a Saturday, the 26th. You can go to the Metro Community College website. We'll have that in the credits as well. And that's a great time, Amy. We talk about people like you who want to jump out on that shingle and get going and make that happen for themselves. And so often it's people don't know how to promote themselves. They're not all smart as you.
It's all about education.
Well, yeah, a lot of self-education on your lap as well. So that wraps up another episode of the Grow Your Biz Show. I'm Paul Madsen. Please visit growmedia.com to learn more about my workshops coming up in April, and of course the one at Metropolitan Community College. Amy, thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Okay, take care.
And we'll see you next week on the Grow Your Biz Show.